Ever since 2.0 and 2.1, it has been somewhat of an accepted realization that the Geometry Dash community has been on a slight downward spiral in terms of activity. There have been spikes in people's interest in the game throughout this time, but it is generally regarded that GD is slowly losing its edge as months pass with no update. That being said, Geometry Dash is far from a dead game, with a still very active fanbase and community to keep it afloat. However, you don't have to go far in the community to find a group of people saying that the game is dying and that if the wait for a new update goes on any longer, the game will go silent. That is an exaggeration, but these claims do make you wonder, when will Geometry Dash die? It has to happen someday, but could it be soon? Well, in this video, I want to take an in-depth look at that question, when will Geometry Dash die? I'm going to take a look at what it means to be a dead game, key signs that could hint at GD dying, and lastly, my opinion on when Geometry Dash will die, or if it is already dying. Please keep in mind that this video is highly based on speculation, and that my ideas or opinions aren't objectively correct. But I have put a lot of thought into them, and they are, from my point of view, solid educated guesses. With all that said, let's get right into it. Alright, so before I jump into the theorization and speculation in this video, I need to set the stage. To do this, I will be clearing up the definition of a dead game as I will be using it in this video. Now, of course, Geometry Dash is, at its core, a single-player experience, meaning that it will never truly die unless it is ripped from the App Store or Steam, which I doubt it will be. Players around the world will always continue to play it from time to time and beat main levels for their enjoyment, but as we all know, GD is so much more than that. There are so many other aspects of the Geometry Dash community that are important to all of us, and when I say the game is dead, I will be referring to this. A dead Geometry Dash means no creators spending hundreds of hours building masterpieces, no top players immersing hundreds of thousands of attempts into levels, and no life within the YouTube and Discord communities that have branched off from the simple mobile game. Now that I have clarified this and we all understand what I mean, I think we can get into the speculation. So, to begin my speculation, I want to review some key warning signs that Geometry Dash will be nearing the end of its life as an active game. There are a few scenarios that I have pinned down as possible events that could suggest GD's future death, and in these next sections of the video, I will look through them all in detail. These telltale events are as follows. 1. We hit a difficulty ceiling. 2. Very little activity from RobTop. 3. No prevalent top creators or players that have recently risen up. 4. No community centers of hype, number 1 demons, big MCs, or community events. And 5. A visible disinterest in the game, many players and creators quitting. By the way, this is by no means an exclusive list. I'm sure that there are other factors that could lead to Geometry Dash's death. These are just the major ones that I could come up with. If you have different thoughts, feel free to tell me about them. So, without further ado, let's take a look at each of these scenarios that could lead to Geometry Dash's death. Okay, so the first key event that could warrant the death of GD is the player base hitting a difficulty ceiling. Top 5 extreme demons have always been a unifying element of the community. We all look forward to these beasts of levels being verified and placed, and when they do, it can accumulate tens of thousands of views for the verifier and spread incredible hype and excitement around the community. However, even though top 5 demons are notable occasions for the community, there is nothing like the attention that is gained from a new top 1 being verified. New top 1s spread around the community like wildfires, and it has been a continuous trend that some of these verification videos can clock over even 1 million views. For example, Zodiac's hacked verification stands at a massive 1.7 million views, and Tartarus seems like it will hit 1 mil shortly, at 700k today. However, nothing compares to something like Bloodlust, which stands at a whopping 6 million views. Based on these facts, it is not hard to see how much of an impact new top 1s have in the community, and how they have always been a factor that has kept players engaged and coming back to the game and the community. However, what happens when we stop getting new top 1s? I talked about this possibility in my video, How Hard Can Levels Get, so you can check that out on my channel if you want more info. But I do think that this could be a very big factor that could play into GD's death. One day there will be a final hardest demon, as the game has to die one day. But when this will come and how close we are to this ceiling is very hard to predict. I'm not going to go into the semantics of my theories about this idea, as I did that in my other video, but I do personally think that we are getting closer every day to this wall of difficulty. There very well may be one day a level so hard that no one can even compete with the monumental difficulty that stands in their wake. And for all we know, such a level could be right around the corner. With the insane difficulty of things like Sonic Wave Infinity and Orochi, this new tier of extreme demons could very well be the last we see. Seeing how important new top 1s are to the community, and how they unite us and bring us back to a common center of hype, it is fair to assume that the loss of this factor could play a big role in the death of Geometry Dash. The next event that I have thought of is a pretty obvious one, but it is significant nonetheless. RobTop is known for being extremely lazy when it comes to managing his game, whether that means not fixing the leaderboards or going silent for long periods when it comes to update information. 2.2 is infamous for having taken 4 years now to be released, and it isn't looking like it will come out any soon. This extended period of waiting has resulted in many players quitting the game, saying that it's ruined by its lazy and irresponsible developer. That being said, I think it stands to reason that one of the most major factors that would play into GD's death would be extreme inactivity from RobTop. Even though Rob has been more transparent in the past few months than he was about a year ago, his investment in the game has waned dramatically as time goes on, and I think it is fair to assume that as he continues to work on the game, one day he will tire of it and quit updating it altogether. This is an interesting concept to me because Rob has two options here. He could either leave the game to prosper as it is with its current update and die out eventually, or he could sell it to a bigger company that would take over its creation. I think both of these scenarios would not be ideal, but I honestly would rather Rob quit the game for good, even if it would result in the game's eventual death. I think it would be better for the community and the way it works than if some big company came in who doesn't understand how we operate and took control of its development. This being said, Rob has said that he plans to develop the game beyond 2.2, as he has announced that some features he has revealed will be released in updates like 2.3. The game is honestly nearing its completion, and I feel like there isn't much more Rob can add to make the game better in any terms of game modes and other additions. I feel like the best thing he can do right now is optimize the game. However, when Rob does decide to quit, I think it stands to reason that it will be a key turning point that could result in the game's death. The next factor that I have come up with is a scenario where there is a significant lack of top players that are joining the game. Geometry Dash has always flourished through the hype of a new skilled player or an amazing creator joining the scene, and while this doesn't happen every day, when it does, watching these players rise to the top so quickly is a very exciting experience. However, in a scenario when Geometry Dash was approaching its final days as an active community, there would be a severe lack of new top players to rise to the top and incite hype in the community once again. I think a really good example of a player who brought the community back to life was Technical, back when he blew up for the first time about a year ago. He very quickly rose to the top, completing the top 8 in an incredibly short amount of time, and his victory over Zodiac and verification of Ragnarok, Ouroboros, and Sigma blasted into the head of the reins when it came to top players. He brought the community and Demons list back to life, and he was there when there was a drought in top players. No matter how much drama Tech has been in and what you think of him as a person, I genuinely think that this game would be so much more barren without his rise about a year ago. On the other hand, though, even though a top player gives a lot of hype, as Tech did, I think a top creator coming out with a masterpiece is equally as important. For example, I want to reference the very skilled creator Zendergame. Zendergame has always been a presence in 2.1, and Nexus has featured many of his boss fight levels on his channel before he blew up, but he never really got the recognition he deserved. That changed when he released his demon the Eshkatan. This level blew the minds of the community, and it sent shockwaves of hype and inspiration throughout the creating player base. This level was vital for the community's activity, and ever since, Zendergame has become a fan-favorite creator. I think this really shows how it's not only players who can send these waves of hype throughout the community, but creators too. A scenario where Geometry Dash dies would most likely include a severe lack of these top players and creators that would bring hype to the community once again. And I think the lack of new, fresh players and creators to come and blow the competition out of the waters would play a very big factor in the eventual decline of the activity of Geometry Dash. The next catalyst that I believe would result in Geometry Dash's decline, or at least be a big warning sign, would be the loss of major hype centers in the community. I already touched on this briefly when I talked about the lack of number 1 demons, as they generate a significant amount of hype, but there are many more events that can contribute to players getting excited over the game again. A great example of this is big Extreme Demon Mega Collabs. Levels like Ouroboros, Ragnarok, Kinos, and many more have all generated huge amounts of hype in the community, despite them not being number 1 difficulty. Ouroboros is an especially outstanding circumstance, because of how well received it was. It quickly gained a reputation as one of the best levels of 2.1, and its beauty made players excited to see what was to come for the editor in GD. However, there is more that can generate hype than just big verifications and mega collabs. Community events are something that we have seen make a huge rise in 2.1, and they have improved the overall state of the community and made it a better, more fun place, all the while getting players active and engaged. From the gang meetup to the GD World Cup, these events have brought players from all corners of the world together. We have had things like Prelude and the 2.1 Awards, multiple streaming events, and so much more, all organized by top players and community members. These events are key to keeping the community active and engaged, and I think without them the game's activity would be much worse off. That's why I think that a big warning sign that GD could be dying is a significant lack of these community events, and with that, the hype they bring. Without them, the community would be a much less fun place to engage in, and they wouldn't bring back players who had lost interest in the game, so without them, there would be a steep decline in active community members. I think that they would only stop being organized if top players and community figures also started losing interest in the game, which likely wouldn't come out until after Rob had quit development and a few other circumstances came before, but I do think that if this were to happen eventually, it would likely be a major dent in GD's activity. The final scenario that I think would play a major role in GD's death is a visible disinterest in the game. By this, I mean that it is evident to see that many players are tired of the game for one reason or another. This could result in many top players and creators quitting the game at one time, which could severely impact the activity of the game and hype in the community. I honestly think that this could be one of the ways GD goes out, as we have seen this happen before. I forget the exact time frame that it occurred, but I remember about a year or two ago, some 10 top players and creators quit the game within the same month, and it severely impacted the optimism and overall mood of the community. This trend of players quitting and leaving comes and goes, but I think that one day there might be a mass quitting in such a short amount of time that it essentially kills the activity and hype of the game. This could be one of the first events that leads to GD dying, as all the other ones would come after. After this mass quitting, there would be no more number 1 demons, no more huge levels or community events, no new top players to rise to the scene or anything else I have mentioned in this video. It would most likely come after RobTop started working on developing the game, but it would be one of the first events after that scenario that would likely contribute to Geometry Dash's demise. This is one to watch out for, and I think it will play a big role in GD's eventual death. So, now that we have all that out of the way, I want to give my thoughts and theories on when Geometry Dash will actually die. This section is entirely my opinion, and I assume some of you might think differently, so feel free to tell me your thoughts in the comments. So, the big question, is Geometry Dash close to dying? My answer to that is a hearty no. GD is nowhere near its death, and it will most likely take at least a few more years before we even have to legitimately think about the community going out. The first event, of course, in any scenario where GD dies, would be RobTop quitting development on the game, and he has said that he at least wants to keep working on the game until at least 2.3. This will likely take at least 2 years, probably more, and the knowledge that these updates will eventually come out will keep players playing the game in anticipation. The community will also be revived by a lot when the updates eventually do come out, as they will bring long-gone players back to the scene to check out the update. 2.2 is going to be insane when it is released, as all those players who quit all those years ago on 2.1 will not be able to help coming back to the community and seeing how it is doing with the new update, alongside playing it for themselves. I do think that 2.2 will be a big tipping point for GD, though. If the update is well made like we anticipate it to be, with Rob having worked on it so long, it could revive GD for years to come. But if it is lacking, buggy, and poorly executed, it could be a big catalyst that could lead to lots of players quitting for good and losing faith in the game and its development. But the game will surely last to 2.2 and beyond. Even today, we have all the factors that I talked about previously in the video. We have upcoming number 1 demons like Sonic Wave Infinity and Arachi that will unify the community. We have more transparency and activity from RobTop in the official GD Discord server. We have new top players like Swyborg, Nswish, Minecrafted, and people like Nepesta joining the YouTube scene to get us excited. And we have big GD events like the GD World Cup and Twitch streams to entertain and engage us in the community. And we have tons of top players and creators investing themselves in the game and showing no sign of quitting anytime soon. Recently, the FPS bypass and PyPass have been allowed on the Demons list, which means that we will see plenty of new players rise to the top with the new skill that they gained from their FPS. With all this in mind, it is clear that Geometry Dash is thriving in its current state, and there is no point in saying it is dying. If you see someone throwing this claim around, please ignore them. They are just likely making noise for no reason other than to take cheap hot takes to get notoriety. I have only been in the community since the very early release of 2.1, but this is genuinely one of my favorite times to be playing GD, and with all the cool stuff happening today, I am enjoying being a part of this awesome community. I hope you guys feel the same, and I think instead of throwing around the claims that GD is dying, we should all take the time to enjoy the community we have made for ourselves and have fun while the game is prospering. Well, that's all the speculation I have for this video. I hope you guys can see my points, and I hope you enjoyed watching me theorize. If you disagree or have any other additional thoughts, feel free to tell me in the comments. I would like to hear what the rest of the community thinks on this topic. If you guys want to see more speculation type videos like this, please tell me, because I have a few more ideas of videos I could do like this in the future. If you guys enjoyed this or any of my other videos, feel free to subscribe, as we are only 60 subs away from 2K, but there's no pressure. I want to thank all of you very much for watching this far, and I hope you learned something new, and I'll catch you all in the next one.